So cybersecurity is a huge issue. We see it in the headlines every day. And we know that we need to start working to enhance our workforce to be able to respond to this ever-evolving threat that's here. So today, we have 3 experts in this area. Being a dean, I oversee our cybersecurity program, but my information is about yay deep, just enough to be able to empower our faculty to help get other folks into the workforce. We're just going to kind of start off, and I'm going to have each of our panelists here introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the program. We're going to start off with Corinne Sandy from Whatcom Community College, who is also the principal investigator for CyberWatch West.
Okay. So I'm Corinne Sandy. I'm from Whatcom Community College up in Bellingham, Washington. We have several programs that we have at Whatcom. One of them is an ATE Center, which is from the National Science Foundation for Cybersecurity Education. It's called CyberWatch West, and we have about 121 colleges and universities and high schools that are part of this consortium. We work closely with industry to try to meet the needs of industry and help the colleges either enhance the programs they have or create a cybersecurity program at their college in order to turn out well-trained workers.
All right, great, thank you. So I have 2 Steves on the panel, so this is going to be a little interesting. So Stephen Parker to my right. So can you talk a little bit about EnergySec and how you work with industry to address the cybersecurity challenges?
Certainly. So I'm the president of the Energy Sector Security Consortium, more affectionately known as EnergySec. I like to refer to ourselves as the trade organization for cybersecurity. That's probably a bit more aspirational than factual, but that's the role that we see ourselves playing. So we're a small nonprofit. We've been around about 15 years, and our focus is exclusively on cybersecurity in the energy sector. Specifically, most of our work is in the electric sector in particular. We're perhaps a little bit different than most of the organizations represented here. We're not an educational organization. We're not a college, for example. We're not an employer. And we're not one of the large trade orgs, so we kind of fit in the gaps. And we have a big focus right now on workforce. Particularly, we're interested in apprenticeships because we have, as somebody mentioned in the previous panel, the smell of desperation. It's very thick in the cybersecurity space, in particular in critical infrastructure areas where the skills are very specialized. So we're looking to build out internships and apprenticeships across the industry, specifically for critical infrastructure with a focus on the electric sector.
Okay, great. And so Stephen Miller is visiting us from Eastern New Mexico University, so you might be the farthest travel panelist here today. Can you tell us a little bit about the program that you have at ENMU and some of the successes that you've had?
Yes, well, good morning, everyone. I'm the director of the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence for Eastern New Mexico University out of Ruidoso, New Mexico, and we're a branch community college. In New Mexico, you have to be associated with the university in order to be a branch community college. After about 1980 is when they passed that law. I'm also a co-PI with CyberWatch West. So part of my role is to help promote cybersecurity and help both the workforce industry as well as the colleges and universities and the students to get jobs in cyber. And so our program is we're a CAE 2Y school. We were designated as a CAE 2Y in 2014. That means that we meet the criteria that was set up by the National Security Agency and Department of Homeland Security on what skills and knowledge that students need to have when they come out of an associate's degree or a certification. The reality is, and one reason we started looking at apprenticeships in New Mexico through a Department of Labor grant is that they get their degrees, they still can't get a job in many cases, especially with just an associate's degree or a certification. You know, this whole idea about, well, where's your experience? And so part of a Department of Labor grant that was issued to the 11 community colleges in New Mexico we developed what we call the IT pathways, and that happened in 2012. Last year, one of our members received a grant to do an apprenticeship, and that member is also a CyberWatch West member, Central New Mexico Community College. So we're working with them to develop an apprenticeship in cybersecurity, and so that's our school, based off of the idea that we're going to not repeat the same thing in every school. We're the center of cybersecurity programs for the entire 11 community colleges in New Mexico. So we teach the courses for all the other community colleges. And so we're now in the process of developing this apprenticeship, working with 10 and 11, about 11 different industry partners in the Albuquerque area to start with.
All right, thank you very much. So in terms of, I think the theme is pretty clear that there's a shortage of talent within cybersecurity, but we know that one of the ways that we can build a successful workforce is through career pathways. And so I want to talk a little bit about what those career pathways are looking like in cybersecurity. So Corinne, could you talk to us a little bit and get your perspective on how well are these pathways mapped out? Are they a continuous piece in motion, or there are pretty good ways for people to move up, or where are we in being able to look at that?
Okay, so some of this is dependent upon geography. So in some areas of this state, and actually the country, a person with an associate's degree does just fine out in the workforce. And this applies to my students at Bellingham, up in Bellingham. So, but the pathways that we have mapped out, we actually start with high school and middle school students. So we have cyber camps where the students come in and they learn the basics of security. We also grant credit to the high school students that complete that credit in our program. They then can come into our 2-year degree, which is all applied credits. So the students learn Cisco networking and Linux virtualization. We've also added courses to the program to reflect the needs of industry. So for instance, we have an industrial control systems security course that we added about 4 years ago that has actually, our students have gotten jobs just based on that one course. And that's partly because we have a lot of students working in utilities and other like refineries and so on, where they need that specialized knowledge. Since that time, one of the issues we've had is the acceptance of applied credits. So as I said, the students are learning all applied things, so hands-on. Universities in the past have been reluctant to accept those credits. We have been able to establish a pathway for our college and several other colleges into Western Washington University that includes all the applied credits. So the bottom line is typically what we'll see is students that either are working in the field and want to upgrade their skills, so they will come to the college and earn those credits. Or we have young people that are trying to start out. They have a pathway at least to a university degree. And then we have people that are either lost their jobs or whatever and have to come back and reskill, and they also have that option. So really the way it works for most people, it's not a continuous thing. It's they will start, they will get jobs, and then they may come back later to upgrade their skills. I have to say, at least in our area, the students have been very successful. So does that cover it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And if you notice, if you read the bios of our panelists up here, they have a whole lot of initials after their name are in there. Those are those industry certifications that are so critical in the tech sector. And Steve Miller, I know you've been really successful at ENMU about integrating that into your curriculum. Can you talk about some of those best practices that have come out of that piece?
Well, some of the things we've done is incorporate industry certifications into our program so that students actually, their final exam is that industry certification exam. So they come out of those programs or those courses with an industry cert, which we're hearing from our partner industry that that's important for these students to have these certifications, that they can show that they have the skills and the knowledge in those areas. We also have a course in ethics and career development and professionalism. So we try to address the competencies that we hear a lot about, the fact that that students need to understand what integrity is, how to keep a secret in a security area. You don't want to post everything you're doing on Facebook, so we try to reinforce those practices. We also talk about the frameworks, which is very important. I was in Colorado Springs about 3 weeks ago with Department of Defense contractors, and what they were talking about in that whole area is that the importance that students need to understand the laws, and they need to understand the frameworks that guide different industries. And so the critical infrastructure framework is a very good example of that, which we actually have developed through CyberWatch West, a SCADA course that concentrates in the critical infrastructure framework.
Okay, great, thank you. And Stephen Parker, within utilities themselves, are they really, for their cyber talent, are they purely hiring externally? Have any utilities have good models that have really built up of how to promote and grow their workforce from within? Or is it really just, oh my God, I've got to have somebody in this position tomorrow?
We're in a relative state of immaturity, I think, in the energy industry. I've seen some efforts to start doing things. Internships are starting to be used. I haven't seen anything that looks like an apprenticeship in the industry, and that's something that we're trying to change in my organization. Some of the challenges we see, there's a scalability issue. Traditionally, security staff have been very senior individuals. Typically, they've been reallocated from other disciplines, and so they've come into it with a very wide array of other talents and skills and abilities. And so there's a general lack of entry-level security positions. I think that's true in many industries. Some of the larger industries and the very large employers where they have very large teams, they can afford to carve out some entry-level positions. We're starting to see that now in the larger utilities as security teams have grown, but it's not something that's, I think, very well established. So, a career pathway from college all the way up to a senior security staff person, I don't think quite exists yet. We're just in a very early stage of starting to identify what that might look like.
Okay, all right. And Mr. Miller talked a little bit about some of the soft skills that have been integrated into his curriculum. So Steve, if you could continue and talk a little bit about what are utilities looking for on those soft skill pieces, and who in utilities really needs to be aware of cybersecurity and cyber threats?
Well, everybody needs to be aware of cybersecurity and cyber threats. What we're seeing, you hear the term Internet of Things, and we're at a point today where nearly everything that touches the business has a cyber component. I was at a demonstration a couple weeks ago and at an event that we put on, and an individual reverse engineered a cordless drill and actually hacked the firmware and made it do things it wasn't supposed to do. With the smart grid, the Internet of Things, the smart grid modernization, we're seeing many areas of the energy business, the power grid, that now have cyber components where there were not cyber components before. Metering, over the past decade, most meters have been converted to basically mini computers. So really everybody needs to be aware of security. You mentioned soft skills. Soft skills are critical in cyber. The days of being able to just slide a pizza under the door to your cyber guy or gal and have them fix things is long gone. Now, you have to deal with budgeting. You have to deal with compliance issues. And I worked for Pacificorp for a number of years. We dealt with union issues, to be honest with you, dealing with individuals at the power plants. Many of them are unionized. And so you have to deal with those issues. There's legal issues, there's political issues, there's regulatory issues. Being able to write and communicate and justify why something should be the way it should be. There's a lot of soft skills that come into being a good cybersecurity professional. And I'd say the majority of security people need those. There will be some positions that are more technical, hide behind a door, have pizza delivered, but fewer and fewer as we go on.
Okay, great. Corinne, can you talk a little bit about curriculum that's available through CyberWatch West and how that can help build up the soft skills for aspiring cyber professionals?
Well, we have a website, cyberwatchwest.org. Currently, we actually have one course that Stephen was a contributor to, and that is on industrial control system security. It doesn't focus so much on soft skills, more along the line of compliance and things like that. We also have information about running cyber camps, and there's ethical parts to that also. We have links to other courses. George Mason University has 11 that they've created that are available to people. We also have webinars that we run monthly. Some are several parts, and that also includes soft skills as a component of that.
Okay, great. And Mr. Miller, your program also it includes some industry exposure. So you talked about some of the classroom aspects, but what are some of the aha moments that students get when they actually start working in industry, whether it's an internship or that first job?
Okay, well, I guess some of the most interesting feedback I've had from students, we have a very interesting pathway with Hewlett-Packard in Rio Rancho, and it's their help desk for printers. But our students get more or less a job there, not an intern, it's a full-time job, not a high-paying job, but working there, learning the soft skills and the skills of being a customer support person, and there's some technical portions of that, along with our associate's degree. We've been working with State Farm Insurance, of all people, and they hire our graduates to become cybersecurity technicians, mainly in a team organization. So the feedback I've gotten by a lot of my students, they'll send me an email, says, "Hey, I'm on this team. I'm on a multiple factor authentication team. I didn't know I was going to be on a team." Yeah, well, you can't solve these problems by yourself in most cases. So actually, we've incorporated a two-semester program using the NICE challenge, which is a laboratory that looks like a help desk, and there's about 200 plus different scenarios that students have to go through to solve a problem. And they get graded on not only solving the problem, but how did they close the ticket. So we look at their communication skills. They also can get promoted in to be a supervisor of the help desk, and they're over the team. And so you get graded. If you can't solve the problem and you escalate it, you actually get points for escalating the problem, because sometimes you can't solve the problem, you need help. And so this is the whole thing, and this is more of a real world environment, and that's why apprenticeships are so important, is you're getting the real world training, and that's what we need. That's what we're hearing from industry. We need that experience.
There
Oh, Corinne, did you have something to add?
There are other avenues. So, for instance, we have an academic program at Whatcom, and as part of that, we have an in-person help desk that the students run. And the students run it. They fix the machines of the faculty, staff, and students. Their private machines, and they can learn, how to interview, how to communicate on the job. And then another thing that may not be well known is in the cybersecurity area, there's heavy emphasis on competitions. So in Washington State, or in the Northwest, we have the Pacific Rim Regional Cyber Defense Competition, which is in person. And the colleges send teams. It's 2.5 days, and we have a lot of industry people that come there looking for employees because they can see the students in action. It's, they're working as a team together, and it's a high-stress situation. So, and then there's other competitions, National Cyber League, Cyber Patriot, that is also integrated into many of these programs. And although, they're actually a lot of fun, there's other things that is a part of it, and that includes the teamwork, the ability to communicate. For instance, at the cyber competitions, there's usually a presentation to the board, and so we'll have people come in from Bowling and others that are on the board, and the students have to present on like why the network's been down for the last 2 hours and how they're going to fix it, or make a business case for something. So those are kind of like things outside of just instruction. That's also part of nearly every cybersecurity program.
Great. So we've got students leaving us with excellent technical skills. They've got industry-recognized credentials. They've got some experience and some those soft skills pieces that through the competitions, through internships. But how do we get students through the door? Mr. Parker, do you want to talk a little bit about what utilities are, in your particular focus, are looking for that entry-level position, and how can we help our students be able to get that first job?
Certainly. So just to kind of parrot what was just mentioned about real-world experience, that's one of the things I'm hearing from utilities is that they want people with real-world experience. So it makes it very difficult to bring somebody from an academic environment and get them started in the industry. I think that's a perfect setup for an apprenticeship model. It's something we've been talking about. An apprenticeship model kind of forms that bridge between the academic world and the quote-unquote real world of utilities. So the smell of desperation, again, I'll mention that phrase that was used earlier, because the market is so tight for cybersecurity professionals. I think there's an increasing willingness to look at alternative ways of hiring people. I had a conversation a couple years ago with a senior executive at a large utility down in Texas when we were first starting our workforce programs, and he said, "No, we don't really have an issue with that. We just, we just go to market and we hire, and we have enough money we can buy people up." Short time after that, he left the industry because he got bought up by a pharmaceutical company. So it was rather ironic. But the number of utilities that can just go to market and find the people they want is very few. So there is that increasing willingness to look at alternative ways of doing it. So internships are becoming a little more widely used. I think the time is right to look at apprenticeship models. Maybe not full up entry level, but full disclosure, I'm on the National Visiting Committee for CyberWatch West. I've been pretty involved with that program, and I'm a big fan of the community colleges. I have three children who have gone through community colleges, and I've hired a number of people from one of our local colleges in Portland that's part of CyberWatch West. It's a very rich vein of talent, and if you're willing to take somebody with a couple years of college and an associate's degree and perhaps some other work experience and take a rider on them, I think you can find some really, really good people. One of the things we see changing, traditionally, as I mentioned earlier, security has been a more senior level position. As teams are growing, we're seeing more of the entry level or at least junior level positions being opened up. From a cost perspective, employers are realizing they can't just go out and get senior people with 10 or 15 years experience. They can afford 1 or 2 or 5, but they can't afford 10 or 20 or 30. And so this hierarchy of job positions is being set up, and that's going to open the door for more entry-level junior type positions to come into play. So as I said, it's early, I think, for the energy industry, and we're just starting to see some movement, and I think the opportunity is very rich.
Yeah. I love when an employer comes and says, I need somebody with a degree and 5 years experience in a technology that's been around for 2 years.
That's more common than you, and blame the HR departments, right?
Yes, that is definitely a big deal. The HR departments versus the operations side, sometimes, particularly in the tech sector, I found are not necessarily always on the same page. So I think we've got a lot of things that really are supporting an apprenticeship opportunity. So we have an industry that has a huge skills gap in their workforce to be able to do that. We have students that are interested in this from all walks because it is in the news and it's technology related and it's hands-on. We've got great collaboration developing curriculum. So kind of the pieces are there. So, Corinne, do you want to start us off and maybe talk a little bit about if a college out there or an industry consortium group wanted to do an apprenticeship, what are some of the resources that are available through CyberWatch West that could help folks get started?
We actually have, one of our objectives is to develop a matching program. So one of the issues we found is that we have industry people that are looking for students, and we have students that are looking for jobs, but matching them up has been a problem. Usually the way it works is that there's some kind of a relationship between the employer and the people at that particular college, and that's not really scalable. So one of the things we do, which has been kind of popular, is our industry event. Stephen has been he's basically doing them for us, but we've had those in Colorado and other areas of the country to bring the employers and the college faculty and students together just so they can meet each other and understand what can be offered. And that's kind of the first step. I know in Washington State there are several registered apprenticeships that have gone through approval process that center around technology. I'm not sure if there's been one that's exclusively with cybersecurity. So I'm not too familiar with the actual process of how to get an apprenticeship, a registered apprenticeship created. Our model at Whatcom is internships right now, which is a requirement for graduation from our program. The students have to work 160 hours in a business somewhere in order to graduate. So that's kind of like the precursor to an apprenticeship.
Okay. And Mr. Mielke, you've got kind of the beginnings of some great apprenticeship connections in New Mexico. Can you share how you got industry to buy into the idea of apprenticeships and what kind of resistance that you had to overcome?
Sure. Well, it helps to get the grant. We had the Department of Labor grant, but one of the things in New Mexico is the New Mexico workforce development, and most of those development in each region of the state are co-located with the community colleges. So the workforce development, we're partners, and actually this grant funded a workforce development coordinator to work with us to help develop, working with our industry partners and their partners to develop the apprenticeship program. And right now and this was all around an IT, so we have an IT development apprenticeship that's already in place. That's really for programmers and web designers and developers. We have the IT systems for like a systems administrator, a network administrator. We have the IT user support apprenticeship going on right now. That's with our Presbyterian hospital there in Albuquerque. They have that apprenticeship, and then we have an IT health apprenticeship. Someone mentioned the healthcare. IT is big in the healthcare industry. I was in Florida at the HEMS conference in February. There are 45,000 attendees to that conference in Orlando, and 3,500 vendors. So all on IT, and it was all concentrated on cybersecurity. So you need to have the industry partners as well. In this, right now we're working. The last one of the apprenticeships is the IT security. So what we're doing with that is we've sat down with those 11 industry partners, and we took the ONET, and ONET. I don't know if you're familiar with the ONET. But through the Department of Labor, they've identified different codes, and we said what a cybersecurity support technician is kind of fits the mold for an entry-level person into cybersecurity. And so then we developed a job description based on the ONET and the industry partners. We also took the National Initiative in Cyber Education framework to map knowledge, skills, and abilities that those employees need to get the job done. And then we also did a cross-cut competency matrix looking at the personal effectiveness competencies, and these were all rated by the industry, not by the workforce or by the community college. This was done by they had HR and they had their technical people from the IT department, because there is a gap between what HR thinks they need and what the IT people think they need. And so we developed that matrix for personal effectiveness competencies, which I mentioned earlier, the soft skills, about interpersonal skills, integrity, professionalism, and those. Then we took it academic competencies, so reading, writing, mathematics, which is one of those that scored way up there. That's a real need for mathematics and technical skills and critical thinking. And then the workplace competencies, which we actually used the Illumina Foundation came up with this idea about teamwork, customer focus. These are things that were really tied into this. And then problem solving, creativity, scheduling, project management skills, those type, time management, those are the things that and then understanding the business, which is something you can't teach in a community college or any university. You have to be there at that company to understand the culture and that business. And so those are competencies that are incorporated. So now we have this whole thing. What we're thinking is that when you finish this apprenticeship, the role of the industry is to assess these students based on what we developed through the ONET. There's 8 tasks that are required as a job description, and they'll be assessed on those. Our role as a community college is to provide the pre-apprenticeship requirements to help in their personal effectiveness and their academic competencies, as well as providing the industry certifications, so the CompTIA Security Plus, an A Plus, or any of those type of industry credentials. And then ultimately, they will, once they get through this program, they have the capabilities of getting a CISSP, which is a pretty is one of the highest level certifications. Even though they won't have the time in service, they will have what they call an associate certification. So having this whole collaborative environment and the funds is what it takes to really be successful in this, and then and having the money. So, and in some cases, it's not just the money from the grant either, because some of these the industry partners are also, they may not be putting in green dollars, but they're putting in their own personal staff dollars to help coordinate this.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. And so, Steve, could you kind of tell us, you've alluded to that the energy sector may be ripe for apprenticeship in this area a couple of times in your remarks. Are there particular utilities that really could be kind of that first wave to get that launched? Is it better to get a group of smaller utilities together because they have a hard time getting the talent, or do you really need kind of that robust organization to get us off the launch pad?
I think either way could work, honestly. And if I had all the answers, I think we'd already have a registered apprenticeship in the electric sector, because we've been trying to do this for a couple of years. I can speak to the state of Washington in particular. I think you're perhaps not unique, but maybe almost unique. That's a bit of an oxymoron, but the state of Washington, you have a very large proportion of public power, with every county having its PUD. And I know Chelan County and Grant County and Snohomish County PUD, I know them very well. And those smaller organizations would struggle, I think, because the scalability. They don't necessarily have room for an entry-level person. So I've had some conversations with those utilities. The larger utilities, there is an opportunity to have entry-level. So the Puget Sound Energy, for example, possibly in the Vista, or a Pacific Corp has a little bit of a presence here in the state of Washington. So I think either of those could work. You're also, I think, blessed having Pacific Northwest National Laboratory in the state. They're one of the leaders in security for the power grid, along with Idaho National Labs. You also have, in the vendor community, Schweitzer Engineering Labs out in Pullman. It's very proactive, and they have a security program out there. So there's certainly some opportunities. What we're trying to do in my organization is to help facilitate it. Because there is such a large number of smaller utilities that can't build the program on their own, we want to build that program for industry and enable it. And that's the puzzle that we're trying to stitch together. We've been working on that for a couple of years now and haven't completely solved it, but we are pressing forward and hope to do so.
All right, great. I appreciate all of our panelists' remarks, but now we'll open the floor to you all. And it looks like we have our first question there in the back.
is there collaboration between not just academia, but like other professional organizations like CSA?
Well, I think, one of the challenges in setting up apprenticeships in non-traditional occupations is that we don't have the precedent. So in the utility industry, internships are very commonly used and apprenticeships are very commonly used, but they haven't been used in the technology position. So what we've been working on is trying to build that bridge. We talk a lot with CIOs and CSOs and CISOs, and they're interested, but they don't know how to do it. And then if you talk with an HR department, they don't understand the needs of the technology fields. And so trying to stitch together HR, security, workforce development programs and bridge the gap so that you can do something that's already being done, but the dots aren't all connected within utilities. And so whether it's an organization like mine or whether it's another industry organization, I think that's a logical place for something like this to reside, as opposed to within a utility itself.
And we probably should, I think I need to kind of put a plug in for community colleges. A lot of people, you may have a perception of academia. Well, in the community colleges, most of the instructors have experience in the workforce. So I was a network manager before I went into teaching. Stephen, you have what, 30 years or something?
I'm on my 51st year in IT. I've worked for NASA in the Apollo project, retired from ExxonMobil, worked for Ford Motor Company in this, and so actually working in security since in 1976. So
and we bring that into our curriculum, so we don't approach the teaching of these topics as, this is an interesting thing. It's all geared toward working. So that's one thing to keep in mind for the community colleges. They're workforce centered. You may look at a university and you may have that perception, although they're going that way too. Also, I should point out that in Washington State, the Bachelor of Applied Science is also offered at community colleges. Whatcom is offering one. It's in IT networking, but it's all skills-based. So you need to keep that in mind. Also, when new technologies come out, like for instance, I said we had the Industrial Control Systems Security course. Well, that course was not created in a vacuum. I actually went to Idaho National Labs and participated in the training. They had a red team, blue team exercise. It was 12 hours. I did all that and went to other trainings and so on and got experience and then used that to create the course. And so the community colleges are much more closely tied to industry and government and utilities than maybe people are aware of. I think I need to say that.
I'll second that, Corinne. That's been my experience.
One of the organizations, just to answer that question, we do work with some other organizations in New Mexico that some of the labor unions that do contract work to New Mexico Power and those companies. Through that first TAC grant, Department of Labor grant, when we developed the IT pathways, it wasn't cyber, but it was more IT. We work with those organizations to help in that collaboration as well. So, and you're right, that really helped us in able to get, we actually used the model that the construction trades used in our IT pathways to get those apprenticeships going.
Okay. Great, I think we had a question here up front.
I've really been interested in the discussion about the possibilities of utilizing registered apprenticeship in cybersecurity and some of the examples of how and where it's being done. I think there's a lot of potential for doing that. One of the things that I think, Corinne, you said was that, sort of alluding to how could you even, how does an employer or an association get into that? So that's something that the Department of Labor and Industries in the apprenticeship section, specifically Jody and his staff, they will work with an individual employer or an industry group to build an apprenticeship program. And it can be just a range of, it's scalable. So an individual employer who's interested in doing that and running it themselves can enter into that experience. And it's all theirs, they own it, and we help them get to an industry recognized credential. Or What is often the case is a multi-employer effort. This is where an industry association comes together and they build a partnership between the workers and the employer representatives to create a training system, partnering with an educational organization, and then they get employer partners to come in and provide either the employees and to get the apprenticeship training going for them. So one of the things that I'll say is community colleges can and often are very strong partners with industry associations to provide the training and to provide the flow of workers. So much of what was discussed up here, I think, are the building block elements to creating a successful group apprenticeship program. So if that's something that you want to do, it's something you absolutely can do, and we have staff who will help you do that. And that goes for anybody here in this room. Just to put a plug out there, AJAC is a great example of where an industry group came together and is serving, how many did you say, 220 employers in the manufacturing industry now? So that's something that, relating to cybersecurity, that there's possibilities there. WTIA, the Washington Technology Industry Association, is the new has a new apprenticeship, and they are an industry association who has created the apprenticeship. Individual employers, Jody mentioned this, Microsoft, F5, Amazon, some server employers are serving as what we call training agents or employers that come in and partner with that apprenticeship organization. And one of the occupations that they have is a network security administrator, which gets and you guys know what this is, part of what they get is a CCNA/P from Cisco. Yeah. I know enough to be dangerous about that stuff, but hopefully that's an industry credential that you value. But they also have software developer, Windows system administrator, Linux systems administrator, web developer, project manager, and database administrator occupations for their partners. So, could there be something like that in the energy industry? Could there be something like that in cybersecurity, I think is the question to ponder. So thank you very much.
Can I make another comment too, is that it made me think about this, is that one of the areas when you're trying to develop these relationships with industry is to understand that organization. And we've talked about the HR and the IT people not being, well, even understanding, if you talk to somebody, for example, in Albuquerque, the Sandia Labs, and you talk about hiring cybersecurity people at the labs, if you talk to the wrong people there, you talk to the engineers, the scientists, the designers, they're going to say you have to have at the labs at Sandia, you have to have a master's degree, period. They won't hire you without a master's degree. But if you talk to the IT support people that support their workstations, that support the network, that support the infrastructure for them to do their work, then yeah, they will hire somebody with an associate's degree. So you have to understand the organization and talk to the right people in order to get the students jobs. And in my opinion, I'm not doing my job in education in a community college unless my students are getting jobs, because that's what is important to me. I want to see them be successful.
Thank you all for staying for the last panel of the day. Let's give our panelists a round of applause.